Hello everybody, welcome back to another alternate history of the world. For you guys, it's been a couple of days, if not a couple of weeks. For me, it's only been, I think, a little over an hour since the last recording. So once again, no second monitor over here on my left, and no internet, and terrible microphone, and a fan in the background, so you may not be able to hear me. Same problems as before, but now I don't have to forget things. Things that I wanted to do, but we were running out of time to do. Along with that, I will also be working on, this time I'll be recording episode 2 of Alternate History of the Americas. I know we haven't seen that in a while, but that's because they've been figuring out how to explore over here. Whoa. They've been discovering on how to discover areas over here in Tornado Alley, how to avoid tornadoes, and what the... Someone forgot to get rid of that line. I'll do that myself here in a little bit, but for now, we must begin. Oh yeah, also I updated the color for the light orange country, so it is a light orange. Although I think it might be darker than this guy, but I can't tell. But that doesn't matter. What matters is we must begin right now. With an updated capitals and province map, we can now begin properly with the pink team. I don't know what just happened. Anyways, the pink team is going to begin to explore more of the Iberian Peninsula. We'll send multiple explorations surrounding multiple undiscovered areas, and then we'll close in on these undiscovered areas. I'm pretty sure over here is mostly plateau and desert. And when I say over here, I mean the Iberian Peninsula, by the way. But they will discover most of the Iberian Peninsula, except for most of the northern parts. They will stay along the coast, leaving this part of everything in the Iberian Peninsula to be discovered. Meanwhile, citizens in Korea propose a new project. What they propose is basically a trade route, so that way people don't have to wander along this path, starting in the Koreas and going all the way from the Koreas to Iberia. A trade route would make this much more organized instead of just stumbling off. So, them and Chinese forces begin a trade route. The trade route begins at the capital and begins to move towards the west, coming along this area that is modern China through populated parts of modern China as well, before entering into this country's China, or this timeline's China. They reach the Chinese capital, then move over to the coast. They follow along the coastline until they reach the river that exists right here. They follow along the river for a little bit before moving south. After moving south for a little bit, it curves around to a port on the Chinese coast that goes around. The trade route then goes up a little bit before going south some more. That way it can get both to modern Taiwan and the island right here that I don't remember the name for. It goes through multiple more cities, dips south, and then from here it ends. It doesn't properly end, however, as a new road begins from this major city that is also a port. It moves west, is for the most part a straight line until it dips down a little bit, down south, then up into the olive country, goes through one of their major cities, continues moving west and through their capital. It goes north a little bit for dipping south. It enters the peach country, falls along their major cities, until dipping down to the green country. By the time it reaches the southernmost point of the green country and begins to loop up north, the Brown Nation and Red Nation begin a petition to redirect the trade route, have it ending right there, and then reorganizing it. So having the trade route ending where it's already at, beginning a new one, going through only the peach country, which would affect the lime country greatly, because of course they wouldn't have a trade route. But no other countries agreed to this, neither do the Koreans or Chinese, and because the Koreans are the one who started this, they have the superior say. This is such a bad trade map, guys. I don't like this, and I don't think you will either. But that's fair. Of course, this is the first ever trade route to exist, and it will be modified heavily in the future. The first trade route will continue, however another one will begin. When it reaches the first city of the peach country, it'll go up north, and then we'll begin to move towards the west. It'll go through some of the light green countries' trade routes, goes through their capital, goes up around the outskirts of the brown country, goes around the outskirts, northernmost parts, for dipping around, but not going through their major cities. It then goes through this dark gray blue nation thing. It goes north a little bit, and then around following Explode Lands. Meanwhile, the original trade route continues. By this point it is completed and everything loops together. Ultimately, because this land has no country in it, it is unsafe and has no rules, so it's complete anarchy. Less people are going to want to go through it, and instead will want to go around south via the Lime team, thus strengthening them instead of weakening them, which is what the Koreans expected. Trade route then goes around into the Arabian Peninsula, south, goes into Qatar, but doesn't come back down like in a loop. Instead it separates, goes through the light orange country, through their capital, staying to the coast, going through the red/pink country, Union. Continuing to follow the coast, it enters the Cyan country, where it begins to move north. It goes through many major cities before looping into the light blue country, going through two of their major cities, then back around the Cyan's capital and nearby major city, before moving back up into the Cyan country's capital. It continues to go north, going through dark the Cyprus nation's capital, or one of their state capitals. And before looping around, going through the Cyan nation's capital, but stopping right here. The red team is angered by the fact that this trade route has had to go through the lime team, and that the trade route through the lime team is much more effective, so will not allow this trade route to continue this way. So while that trade route ends, a new one will begin. Up north, in the highest northernmost parts of the Cyan nation, will begin. Move up north along the coast, and then continues to moving west to the Blue Nation, which is very unstable. It moves along the Blue Nation until eventually going through their capital. A large bridge is formed that allows for the trade route to continue. And from here it begins to move south, going through a couple nations' capitals, such as the state capital for one of the Cyan teams, or Cyprus team's provinces, then continues up into the light red nation, turning, and moves north to their capital, before turning around through another one of the light red nation's major cities, and then stops right here. Since no one has claimed these lands yet, no one properly trusts them, and also, while a trade route may be easy to create right here, rogue people may come along and try and steal from these people. It is, for the most part, very dangerous to come along up here. Unfortunately, because of the red team's stubbornness, the African nations, none of the African nations currently will have a trade route, angering not only their neighbors, the red team's neighbors I mean, but also a couple of their citizens. This leads to a rebellion that was funded by the Pink Nation and the Dark Red Nation. While the Dark Red Nation did have their government overthrown and replaced by a government more supportive of the Red Team Nation, this no trade route going through Africa is unacceptable, as it leaves them for the most part defenseless. I'm going to fund multiple rebellions in major cities off the coast. Here I believe this is the Red Sea. The Red Team will get a hold of this, however, and before putting an end to the rebellion, will attempt to completely wipe out the Dark Red Nation. We'll also be getting invasion into the Pink Nation. I'm having to turn off capital so I can see just how small that guy is, or their capital city is, but it's actually much larger than I remember. You take the capital of this province right here, the middle province, and then force the Orange Team into getting into the war. The Orange Team takes this little enclave that the Pink Nation has, before taking parts of the Dark Red Nation. Until eventually they're super small and look just like this. They then make peace with the Dark Red Nation and Magenta Nation. Meanwhile, the rebellion will reach parts of this major city right here. Once that is done, they will begin to move westwards towards the Orange Nation, splitting off the entire province from the mainland, the entire southern province of the Red Country, away from the mainland. The Magenta Nation is able to reclaim their major city, and then some more, including a major city of the Red Teams. For moving up north, and meeting up with this red nation, which I don't know why it looks like that. At this point, the red nation has to go to peace with the dark red nation, thus leaving the dark red nation to be the smallest country in the world as of this time, and the first proper city-state, because it literally is just one giant city. Two rebellious nations meet up right here. All wacky colors form on my screen for some reason. Over here, the red nation will begin to push back over in the border of one of their provinces. This will go very successfully, and now this big nation, or the dark purple nation I think it is, I don't know what color this is, it's very weird though, but they're beginning to look a little bit like Florida. Just to seal things off, the red team makes an attack up here, separating this part of the southernmost part of the rebellion from the northernmost part, and then take some land of the northernmost part, effectively creating a Florida. However, this right here is where the war stalemates, and the red team is forced to make peace with them. In this peace treaty, we see the red team lose some of their land to the orange team. The rebellion wins and gains their independence. The magenta team gains a little bit of land, moving towards the north, which is, I forget what the word is for it, I don't remember the word for it is, but that doesn't matter. What also matters is that the Dark Red Nation also regained some of their original land, and then I think maybe a little bit more. And the orange team also takes a little bit of land from the red team, although they still get their share of the west part of the dark red team. However, the rebellion was able to get up north, nor was it able to convince the red team to allow the trade route to go through them. In fact, the red team uses that as another reason to not let the trade route go through them, saying, hey, if you're going to fight me for the trade route, then I'm just not going to give it to you. We were considering it before, but now you're not getting it. A group of brave explorers begin to move up north. Most of these explorers are from Italy, but a couple of them are from the red team. They begin to explore north and even a little bit west. The goal is to discover more room for new countries to form, or for their original nations or native countries to expand a little bit. Italy will notice that it will actually take longer for information for their capital to get up to their little enclave. And so they tell the enclave that if it wants to, it can gain independence. The enclave decides, hey, yeah, that's actually a pretty decent idea, let's do that. And they become this wacky color that I have no idea how I created, I just did somehow. So this wacky nation shows up, and they begin expansion. Well, I don't know why it's doing that, probably because the colors are similar. Actually, no, I think we should... yeah, they'll expand. I was considering having them stay as a city-state, but the trade route must continue, and so, after the pressure from their civilians, they decide to expand. They make an agreement with the Italians, and with that they expand as well. This means that at last the trade route can continue. Goes to the new nation, then branches off once again like what they did with the Dark Banana Nation over here, what it did with their capital in modern Qatar. They move around into the Dark Yellow Nation through some of their major cities, down south, once again branching off, and reaching their capital. They also reach Sicily, which means at last the trade route can branch off. It does just that, branches off, begins to move to northern parts of the Dark Yellow country, and at last it reaches over to the, it's the westernmost part of the Dark Yellow country, and that is where we'll leave it off. It was another fairly short video, I know, but for a short video a lot happened. The trade route was built and a civil war occurred. And surprisingly, the Blue Nation didn't lose another person. Because remember last episode, they lost the war to a small nation and then went through 2 civil wars. This time there was a peaceful civil war up here, and then a very bloody civil war down south. And that's where we leave it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. See ya.